Hi, this is Joe Bolen, and welcome to learning about VisualBasic.net. We're working on a text editor project in the last series of videos, and at this point in our text editor, we're going to learn how to save the user's preferences. In this case, we're going to save the form location, the form size, the font color, and the font that the user wants for this application. And every time the application runs, those settings will come back into play for the user, and if the user changes those settings, they'll be preserved when they exit the program. But before we get started, let's take a look at our code so that we know where to go to find out more information about this project and other projects. Our main code is being stored out at pastebin.com/u/jboh, and there you'll find the source code for this video as well as others in the series, and you're welcome to take a look at it, to study it, and even pull it into your own code and modify it for your own purposes. Also, our screen for the main form has been captured and put out at Imager, so you can also take a look at it. So if you're designing your own text editor type project, you might want to use it as a guide to create your own. And lastly, at youtube.com, you can go out and take a look at all the VisualBasic.net videos that I've produced and take a look at the ones related specifically to the text editor project. So you can go out to youtube.com at Bolen Presents and find other videos to watch. Well, pause your video at this point in time if you'd like and copy down those links, and then afterwards you can go out and study the code more in detail later or look at other videos. Well, let's get into our project. I have Visual Studio up and running, and I'm in the Visual Designer area of the form, and I'm going to make it so that we can capture the size of our screen, the dimensions of our screen, as well as the font color and the font style that we're using for our editing area in our text editor project. And to do that, I'm going to use the My Settings ability to bring in those settings that I preserved. And I'm going to go up to the Solution Explorer and click on the project itself called Text Editor, and I'm going to go to the little wrench to get to the properties of the project. Okay, when it comes up, I'm in the application area, and I'm going to come down on the left side to the settings area, and we're going to put in our settings that we're going to use. And you'll see that I have the name area that I'm going to put in the variables that I want to use, and these are the ones that I define, the type that they'll be, and the scope, whether it is for each user or for the whole application for everybody on that. We're going to be using user in this case because we want every user to have their own unique settings. So the first one I'm going to bring in code for is the form size. So I'm going to give a name, form size, for my name. The type is going to be a system drawing size on that. So I came down to the drop down and clicked on system drawing size. Now I'm going to change this a little bit so you can read it better. It'll be of a scope user, and then I'm going to click on the value, and you'll see the value will take on 0,0, and that's fine to get started because we'll change this as the user exits out of the program. The next one I'm going to bring in is form location, and this one is also of the system drawing namespace, but in this case it's the system drawing point, and once again I'm going to use a value 0,0 on that. The third variable I'm going to bring in is form for color. Get my fingers in the right spot. And this one is of a system drawing color type. And you'll see that the white came in for the value. I'm going to click on this value and hit the drop down and change that. And you'll see that I can choose the custom. I can click on the black down here. I could come over to system and choose some of the system colors as well, or I can go to the web and click on it. I'm just going to click on the black here in the web. So I've defined my value as black for the for color that we're going to be using in our program, and then I also want to allow the user to define the font. So I'm going to use the name font. It's of a system drawing font, and I'm going to click on value, and you'll see the ellipsis button appearing in the value area. I'm going to click on the ellipsis button, and it'll bring up the font dialog, and I'm going to go with Calibri, which is the default font for the body in Microsoft Word. I'm going to use regular font size, and I'm going to go to the size of 12 point for this one. So I'm going Calibri, regular 12 point. I'm going to say OK, and that'll come in then as my value for my font. So what I am doing here is defining the variables that I'm going to be using, and I'll be referencing them as my settings and then the variable name. And these are the types, and in this case they're all user defined scope, so each user running this application will have their own settings for this program. And so we've got everything in place ready to go for us to code behind this to take advantage of these variables that we've introduced. So I'm going to save that in our projects properties area and close out the tab for the project properties and come back to our program. And then I'm going to go over to the code for our main form class, and I've already reserved my region area here, and I'm going to expand it out, and we're going to put in our applied settings procedure and our save settings procedure into these locations. Okay, let me get some space here. I'm going to save a little time and do a cut and paste, bring that in place. So let me come back over to my code, and I'm going to grab very quickly the code for that. I'm going to come back over here and paste it in. Okay, let me change that so it's a little easier to read. Okay, let's talk about what I just brought in. I have a procedure that I've just coded for, and it's a private procedure. Only this class will call this procedure, and my procedure's name is called Applied Settings. And what I'm going to be doing is going out to the My Settings namespace area and look for my variables and see if they have a value, and then set my program accordingly if they do. So I'm going to be looking at form size, and if it's not empty, I'm going to take my settings form size and make it ME size. In this case, ME refers to the class that we're working in. If we are coding in C#, this would be this instead of me and dot size. So we're using ME size for Visual Basic, and we're setting it to whatever we have in the form size variable setting that we have in the projects area. I'm going to do the same thing for the form location. On that, I'm going to look at my variable that I defined, and if it is not empty, then I'm going to assign my settings form location to the class main form me dot location. And then also I want to set the text box area for the editing to what the user wants, and there I'm going to look at the for color, and if it's not empty, then I'm going to apply the for color to the my text box for colors property. And similarly, I'm going to look at the font name and the font size to make certain they meet these conditions, and then apply it to my text box font. So that's all it takes to do that, and we could have other settings if we wanted to, but I'm using just these four for this project. So this is the procedure that I'll run. When I begin the program, I want to apply these. I'm going to take a look at my settings to see if the variables are out there with values and apply them to my project. Similarly, when I exit my program, I also want to save those settings. So I would need a code in here for saving those settings. And once again, I'm going to do a quick cut, copy, and paste. So I'm going to come over here to my save settings procedure, do a Control-C to copy, come over here and do a Control-V to paste in place. And let's take a look at the code here. This, once again, is the procedure. It's private, and it's called Save Settings. And when we run this, we'll come in, and we're going to first look at the Windows state. If I have my windows at a normal size, then I'm going to use the form size and save that into the settings on that. If my window, though, happens to be minimized or maximized, Then I'm going to use the ME restore bound size instead of ME size and save it into the My Settings form size. Similarly, I'm going to save the location to the form location, the for color of my text box to the My Settings for color, and the My Text Box font to the My Settings font. So we have 4 that we have applied, and we have 4 settings that we're saving upon exiting our program. Okay, we've got these in place now. Now let's put go to the area where we're going to actually call the applied settings and call the save settings area of our procedures. So I'm going to go back up here to main form events. And the main form is a great place where we do housekeeping, and this executes before the form is shown. So this is the time where we want to retrieve those kind of variables in place. So I'm going to set it up so I can code in more down below here. Once again, I'm going to take advantage of my quick cut and paste approach to save time. And I'm going to go up to there, and I'm going to bring in that code, and I'll drop it in place here. Okay, so all I'm doing is at this point applying the settings. This is calling the applied settings procedure that we've coded down here below. So when we first start the form loading, we apply the settings. Now, the form closing event, when we're exiting out of the program, we want to save those settings. And earlier I had this in place, but I had it commented out because we hadn't had the code in place yet. So I'm going to now activate it. And so when we run the form closing event, so if I hit the red button on the main form, or I exit out with the normal exit of through the menu strip, the form closing event will be called. We'll save those settings and then exit on out. So there are our 2 parts that call the applied settings and then save our settings upon exit. Well, let's watch and see it work. I'm going to compile it. And I'll say full screen right now, and there it came in. Let's bring in a text for us to look at. And Man of La Mancha. That sounds like a good one. We'll bring in Man of La Mancha, and there it is in place. And right now it is at 12-point Calibri black text. But I don't want it to be that. I'm going to change that for my default. So I'm going to change my font. And there's my font dialog that came up. Maybe I like to use Tahoma. That's a nice font. And let's make it bold. And let's go with maybe 14 points and color of navy. And I'll hit apply. There we go. Ooh, bold maybe is a little bit more than I want, so I'll just go regular. There we go. And say OK. And so I've changed the font. Maybe I don't like to edit it on my left side, but I like my window to be over here. And maybe because a page looks more like this, I'll make the size a little bit different. Okay, now I've done my editing and I'm ready to exit out, so I'm going to hit File Exit, and we'll do the form closing event, and these settings that we just did should be preserved. So I'm going to hit Exit. Now let's run it again and see if it starts up in a different spot. In other words, it'll start up the spot we last had and with the font we have chosen. Okay, well, the location's the same and the size is the same as we had. Let's bring in that text. This time, let's bring in maybe Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. And there it came in, and it did come in with navy, with the font size that we had picked, Tahoma, and also the size that we had picked as well into our place. So we've preserved our settings for the user. When they exit out, those are saved. When they rerun the program, they are reapplied. And so we preserve the user settings. The important thing to remember in our program is we did it all with the properties area in the settings, we put in our variable names that we wanted, the type, defined the type that they were, and then gave them initial values. And then in our program, we actually referenced those in the applied settings and save settings section to make our program come alive and take advantage of those settings. Well, we're moving right along in our project. We've got it now a little bit more professional-like and, most importantly, more user-friendly. Saving those settings makes the user a lot happier if they don't have to change things every time they run the program. Well, I want you to go out to pastebin.com, take a look at the code, and study it in more detail. Code some yourself. Make this maybe something you'll put into any application you create so that you can preserve the user settings and make it a more dynamic experience for the user. And until next time, get your hands dirty to code and take care.